press record.
It's Irish coffee.
Is it really?
Cold Irish coffee.
Without the coffee and the cream?
It's everything. No, not the cream, but it's liquid cream.
Is it just whiskey?
No, can you see it?
It's empty. Oh, this is just coffee.
Yeah, just coffee.
When you said Irish coffee,
It's Irish.
there's
Okay.
whiskey. There's whiskey in it.
Yes, Talisker.
Oh.
It's a shame to put Talisker in coffee, but there you go. It's kind of Scottish coffee.
Because it's Scotch.
Scotch, yeah.
Yeah.
Leela is shouting, I have to go upstairs and get some more coffee. And is that okay, Frank?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll be down in 1 or 2 minutes.
Okay, talkie.
Still hear you. Bop, 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 bop. Okay.
No.
Oh, now it's 99.9% coffee. Leela asked me to tell you that your education training program in psychology is for my benefit too. So you could give me advice so I could get fit.
Do you want to get fit though?
Uses every and any opportunity. Yeah.
To what? Do you want to get fit? Hardly.
I am fit. I'm
You are
fit
fit.
for drinking coffee and walking along the sandy beaches, fishing here. What more can I want? I don't want to run down there in like 10 seconds. Don't need that. But of course, a little would do.
So you just have to racing up the stairs there to get the coffee. So, I mean, that's your workout done for the day.
Yeah.
You're sorted.
Yeah, my back is a little better nowadays, but it's going very slow. So I just have to be a little careful with what I do and things like that.
Is it ongoing? Is that just going to be the way it is? There isn't a fix that'll fix their thing?
It's getting better, but it's a very slow process this time.
Okay.
The doctor, the specialist said to me, is a German woman, Hanna. She said to me that the muscles are used to protecting from the prolapses in the spine. So when it's not there, when the prolapses has grown together, there are kind of scars and stuff. So the muscles keep functioning as if the cause of the pain still was there. So they actually squeeze the nerves in a certain way so that I feel the pain. It's a physiological, psychological thing. So I'm going to kind of therapy. They use a machine to actually crush the tissue, and when it's rebuilt or organically, I think, then it will not have these kind of memories in brackets.
Okay.
So it's a very funny thing. It's the most scientifically proved thing about physiotherapy is exactly this machine kind of thing. It's a kind of pressure, like a drill hammering into my back when she uses it, my physiotherapist. So it's funny.
It's reteaching the body. Is that it? Really?
In a sense, but it tears down tissue. So the new tissue is kind of ignorant about how it should do things. So they will not get into the old habit of the present tissue or muscles or whatever it is.
Right.
Yeah, but that's that's a good explanation with some rationale to it. I don't
Pain, eh?
fancy the palm leaves and the singing Hawaiian therapy for everything. But this is a kind of, yeah, it's a kind of experience that she has for many years working with people like me, various physiological pains and all that. So it seems to me that she can very well be correct in what she's saying.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a lot about this body. How about the other body? You keep it running.
No, I haven't been running in ages.
Okay.
I haven't ran since practically since I finished the marathon, which is
Okay.
that's a long
How did the
time.
marathon go? Did you cross the line in the end?
I did just under like 32 seconds under the 4 hours, which I was going for 4 hours.
I remember
That was
yeah.
the objective, was to hit under
Yeah.
4 hours.
I think I put up the graphic line that in some 20, 30 years, you do it in no time.
Yeah, if I kept going. So with that in mind, then I obviously I've just not running again. We'd see.
Okay.
I thought I would run again, but I just seem to have no interest at the moment.
That's okay.
Yeah, I was during the summer. I was getting on a boat and then playing a bit of tennis. So that just seems to be a much more fun way to be active than hammering the ground.
Yeah. That arduous work perspective, I don't like when I do things.
Well, I never really enjoyed
like a
running.
Kind of duty.
Yeah, it became a duty. Now, I did want to hit that target for whatever reason. I can't remember why I wanted to hit it, but I wanted to hit under 4 hours.
And you did. You did.
And I did. So that's something, isn't it? I can't even remember enjoying the beers afterwards. I don't think I did enjoy the beers afterwards, which is I was in so much pain.
Glad we invented time with 60 minutes an hour so that you could get under 4 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, thanks to those people. Otherwise, you wouldn't have known, would you?
Yeah. All of those things. Yeah. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known. Plus, I got a little certificate that says I got under the 4. So I look at that every day just to remind me never to want to run again. Do you know what I mean?
You did it, yeah.
Yeah, I wish. Anyway, yeah, there you go. We see, I had started off at 5.5 hours when I did it the first time. So then,
well, a lot of things are easily improved in the beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, you could do 90% of a lot of things quite easily, but when it gets to the last 10%, that's where the real things kind of kick in. That's the real challenge. To do the 90% is kind of ordinary, simple.
I wouldn't say simple. Well, I wouldn't say simple.
Yeah, I mean, if I started, maybe I could finish in 9 hours. That would be simple. And the next I could go for 8 hours, 59 minutes.
I think you just have to really want it, don't you? I mean, I just don't want to finish in 3 hours. If I really wanted to, I think I probably could do it. But it would mean a huge amount of devotion into running, and there's never really that much joy in it. It was more just the completion and the completion thingy, yeah. The starting and the finishing and the task of it, and the kind of getting through the pain somehow out the other side. That was somehow nice, maybe. But
there was always some kind of pain involved. Otherwise, you get it for free, kind of. So
yeah,
there was always an effort, some strenuous work or exercise you have to pass through. I mean, a friend of mine, he's now the head of the Norwegian Olympic Administration, is Tore Øvrebø. He started out rowing, and he
Mm.
became a coach. And I discussed martial arts with him when he was studying philosophy. We were studying it together, and he implied a lot of those ideas. And suddenly things started rolling in a much better way, more smoothly, you can say. And he asked this, actually, he advised this Norwegian top talent swimmer that unfortunately died a few years ago to actually do exercises outside of the swimming pool, to
Mm.
climb around in the wilderness on four legs, I mean, on all four, do those kind of things to build up the body's muscular capacity or whatever, the flexibility, everything. And after he'd done that for a while, he really improved while swimming. He really,
Mm.
really improved.
Yeah, I bet it's
So
something about
that
opening up the natural movement of the body, probably.
yeah, it's like if you do one specific thing and only that, it's kind of you go into a niche and things not only can become very boring, but actually very limited. You have this
Yeah.
idea that if I keep running 100 meters, I will run faster and faster if I practice running more and more and more. And what you actually might need is to do something totally different.
Mm.
And that might seriously improve your running capacity. That's what he did with this swimmer.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. Well, I did all this breath thingy, this breath to try and increase the lung capacity. I think it might have made
Yeah,
a
that
difference,
can,
that Wim Hof sort of thing.
yeah, that can do
I think I saw some podcast or
something
something
other
somewhere.
than
Yeah.
increasing the capacity whilst running.
Yeah.
It's that playfulness that is very kind of magic when you do
Mm.
this. I mean, I was in seminars listening to psychologists some years ago talking about self-confidence for women that wanted to establish their own business. And they kept talking about self-confidence all the time, all the time, all the time. And I said that's not the way what I would do. I mean, what is it that is required for you to start a business? You need to be able to put up a budget to price your services or products or whatever. You need to make calculations to to write what is it called, an account?
Business
No,
plan.
you need to write the in and out money, the expenses, the
Okay,
income,
the accounts. Yeah.
and you need a little of marketing knowledge. You need a little bit of that, a little bit of a few things. When you know all these things, in the sense that you have now what is needed, then self confidence will come as a shadow.
Mm.
When you actually know what is required, let's say on a minimum level, you are confident. You
Mm.
can actually start now. So instead of focusing on self confidence, you actually you bring it up by doing something totally different.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always this idea of focusing on the result, focusing on the result as opposed to the process.
Yep, people always want to address this kind of problem or challenge directly. I mean, if I would like birds in my garden, I have two options at least. I could either put them up in cages or plant bushes and trees.
Mm.
And if I put them up in cages, people ask, yeah, you've got birds in your garden. Well, I have in a sense, but once the trees start growing, the bushes, probably with berries on, then the birds will come by themselves.
Mm.
So to do things indirectly is one of my ways of doing things with
Mm.
people and for myself. Because if you focus directly on it, you will kind of miss it. You will be
Yeah.
able to do it, but you will not advance to a kind of level that has to do with, let's say, mastery or virtuosity or whatever. I mean, Yodi Menuhin, the violin player, he was doing yoga, and he said that that greatly improved his way of holding the fiddle. I don't know if it's called a fiddle, maybe it's a violin in classical music, but it greatly improved his relaxed ways of handling the bow and the violin. So that really was his way of doing something other than simply playing the violin and practicing. That made him go a giant step forward, if you can talk about it in that way.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot lately. That idea of play and how everything is so serious and how everything is like everything that we do. It's like when I was going for a run, it was okay. I'm going to do 5K as opposed to running for the bit of crack, for the bit of fun. And if I do 5K, that's a byproduct of going out there. But maybe I'll just do a half a K and stop.
Mm.
Or it's just that idea of playing, and it seems, this is a broad statement, but it seems like the world is serious, that it's very, everything that is done for the most part is not just done for the sake of it, it's done for the goal of getting somewhere, whether it's exercise or meditation or working in the job or trying to become good. It's always becoming, it's not for play's sake. And I know this is, but this is moving into a certain type of conversation, but I'm just really interested in that idea of play, that it seems to be absent. Do you think that's true, or is that just
In
my
most
view?
cases, I would agree. Yeah, there is a seriousness once you pursue a certain goal or a project that ends somewhere in the future. Then it's very exhausting because the things you're doing now is simply instrumental. There is no joy in it in themselves while doing them. Of course, you might enjoy doing yoga, but if you want to do yoga to become X or Y, then it becomes a kind of strenuous effort to get up in the morning and do, for example, Kriya Yoga, which is a very hard exercise on a more advanced yoga level, then people are actually making it a lot harder for themselves. And the playfulness never seem to be in what you're doing if you do it that way. Once you drop the goal idea, I mean, if you practice yoga or if you practice athletics or gymnastics or whatever, if you keep running, things will happen with your body. If you lift weights, muscles will develop. I mean, we know that certain things will happen if we have a certain practice. But we are much more in our culture focused on the goals. So if people ask, for example, me, well, not me as me, but if people ask someone, what are you doing? Yeah, I'm trying to get to X by doing this, and people will approve. Yeah, that's a legitimate target, or that's a legitimate goal, and we all like to become rich and famous and good at things and win competitions and blah blah blah. And they kind of recognize themselves in the kind of reciprocal sympathy of the struggle and the exhaustion of doing something that is purely instrumental, strategic, temporary, in order to get where you really want to go. So the sympathy arises from the understanding that, oh, you are also on your way to your target, which can be different than mine, of course, but then the same or similar situation is there, that we can exchange sympathy and support because we are both locked in a situation where there is kind of no escape on our way to X and Y. And I think this is also in the spiritual industry. People recognize that, oh yeah, I'm working on the heart chakra now. I mean, it's totally ludicrous. Working on the heart chakra for what? To make it bigger or smaller, or to get beyond it into the throat chakra, Vishuddhi? I mean, what are all these people doing? my experience is that most of them are simply exchanging this reciprocal recognitions and sympathies that we are both on the way. If you come and say that I have walked all the way, then if you're not a master, if they don't recognize you from already something you've done or whatever, if they don't see you as an authority, a lot of these people will get very offended. And the easiest thing to do is when you deal with such people, and I would say especially in the spiritual industry, and don't respond to this exchange of reciprocal sympathy, then they think you're absolutely weird, you're mad, there is something absolutely wrong with you. Because they sense that there is no kind of feedback to what they are saying. It's not that you're laughing at them, but there is no reaction to what they are kind of openly telling you, that I had this lovely experience with the celestial beings and blah blah blah. I mean,
but you see, even I suppose what I'm talking about is not, and it's not forced fun, or you say there's an app called Mindspace. It's basically an app that teaches you how to meditate. Now,
okay,
but even the principle of meditation, or like you're talking about the chakras there, or whatever it is, it's always, from what I can see, it's always quite serious. It always has it's not, I don't see people
that
sitting in
tends
the
to be
meditation,
serious.
even say, for example, somebody could come up with a meditation, a laughing meditation. I'm sure Osho had a laughing meditation, but it was all also for the purpose of some reason, as opposed to just when a kid gets on a bike, they're going cycling down the road and they're not going anywhere. And it's just for the sake of cycling the bike. And it's just that that bit of fun or messing and play acting and having a laugh seems to be absent from all of these quite serious things that are supposed to make you better. As opposed to, spend 20 minutes playing football, or I don't know, whatever, kick the football up against the wall for the sake of kicking the football up against the wall. But you see, then the moment you open your mouth, then it's the moment you really say anything about having a laugh or play for the play's sake, it's suddenly somebody will make something out of it, really. They'll go, okay, do you know what I'm going to do now? I'm going to go outside and kick the football up against the wall and see, do I feel any better?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, anyway, you're damned. I suppose it's just that idea that I've been playing with that idea of play and what it is. And then I went looking and I found some TED Talks and conversations all over the internet. And they were all kind of a little bit dull, really, in the sense of trying to make one was interesting, this idea of introducing curiosity again. That was interesting. But
well, Osho designed with his disciples these therapies. Some will call them meditations, this mystic rose where you sit one week laughing, the other week you sit in silence, or you roll around and scream or whatever. And Nataraj, Kundalini, everything, all these therapies, he said, leads to the moment that you can actually sit in silence and listen. It's kind of vipassana or Zen meditation. It's the same thing. For them to simply get rid of all the energy, it's like not rid of in the sense that they are totally empty, but all these mad energies, all these conflicting energies in a lot of people, to actually calm them down, or to still
it
the
still has
inner
a
storms
purpose.
or
A
whatever.
purpose. It still has a
Yeah,
purpose, though.
yeah, and also, yeah, he wanted them to actually be able to sit and do nothing. And in yoga, they have this karma yoga, which means that you actually work. You do ordinary things. You cut the vegetables in the kitchen, of course, that is needed, but then you perhaps grow something, you go out in the field and get the potatoes. I mean, it's work, painting the house, whatever. To actually calm down all these energies. So to prepare a kind of readiness to really begin yoga or to really begin meditation, which was Osho's idea, I'd like to say. Now, if you look at this
Still,
playfulness, if you
yeah, it
look at
still
this
has a
playing,
purpose. Yeah,
yeah, playing and playfulness has no purpose. It's a purpose in itself,
yeah,
which means that there is no purpose.
yeah,
It's simply kids biking, girls and boys. They simply enjoy biking together,
yeah.
exploring whatever is going to happen. That is a play. Uh, if you look at a game always has a purpose. It's about winning most of the time. So a
Mm.
game, children will also play games, but we adults introduce them to games. There are certain rules you have to follow and everything, and there is a purpose in the end of a game. A chess game is to actually put the opponent's king checkmate, and there are a lot of games, but a play or playing does not have any purpose in that sense. And that is why we say that it is for the childlike, not childish, but the childlike people. They play all the time. They are not in this game anymore. They're
Mm.
simply playing. It's an effortless joy all the time. There is no purpose. It's not an instrumental thing that has been designed in order to get you on a certain to a certain goal or to fulfill anything. I mean, a lot of people will say, the teachers, if you do this, then you will get there. Yeah, that is appealing to a lot of people because they sense that this authority can give them something. And when children are biking, they don't talk about what they will get. I mean, in that sense, they're simply biking
Yeah,
and enjoying what's going on, enjoying what is
yeah.
happening.
So it's the same idea then in art, and we have definitely talked about this before. But it's
Yes,
the same
yes.
idea then in art, or it's where it's not the person that wants the number one single. It's the person that's just doing it because they love doing it and they're just playing.
There are
Um,
these people around, but a lot of artists have a hard time making a living on doing what they really enjoy doing. So a
mm,
lot of them try to sell paintings, sculptures, whatever they do. I mean, it's a rough and hard life for many of them. So I can understand that they need to do that too. But
yeah,
I think that not all artists really have this playfulness. But when they do, it's kind of watching something that is pure magic, especially when they are painting or sculpturing or whatever. To actually be able to watch them doing this thing with this pure joy is just amazing. It's it's
yeah,
like it's like a magic,
yeah. That's the
something
lost
wholly
in.
other than making something to sell it.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, Picasso knew what he was doing. He was very famous while he was alive, and that's a very rare thing. So a woman came to him once and asked him to buy a painting, and he said, "I only have one left." And she said, "Well, I called you earlier and I said I'd like to buy two paintings." So he simply brought a saw and cut it in two and signed both. And there she went away with two paintings. Of course, they are very expensive today because of this story,
mm,
but he didn't fucking care.
mm,
If you want to buy eight, let's cut it in eight. It's if it sells, it sells. He was
yeah.
very aware of that. I
I
mean,
think
once in a restaurant,
I was going
Once
to
in the
say we
rest of
find
the
that very attractive, that idea of not giving a fuck. That not giving a fuckness comes across.
yeah, that part of Picasso is something joyful, that he didn't care.
Mm.
That part of him. He had other parts that were not so nice. But then he was in a kindergarten once, and all the children were painting, and Picasso was coming on a visit, and everybody was excited. And he came across a little girl at 5 years old. She was simply painting on a canvas or whatever, white. And Picasso asked her, what are you painting? And she said, I'm painting a cow eating grass. And Picasso said, where is the cow? Well, it's eaten, so it's gone. But then where is the grass? Of course, she has eaten it. That's why she painted everything white. And that
Mm-hmm.
was a very important kind of wake up call for him, that creativity has no limits whatsoever.
Can be anything, yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, it's hammered into us what it should look like, and we should
Yeah.
draw in between the lines. It's hammered like of
Yeah.
what it should look. It should look like something, should
Yeah.
appear like something structured, or
Yeah. But
as
once you
opposed to.
introduce a goal, a purpose, then it becomes very limited, because then it becomes something that it's going to end up in, and it's
Yeah.
not playfulness anymore. Of course, it can be enjoyable. Composers composing a new symphony for the 100th anniversary of X and Y. Yeah, but they have been kind of hired to do a specific thing. Of course, they can do that
Mm.
too, but the creativity is not limitless in that sense, I would say. It can be, but it's very, very hard.
Yeah. You
I mean,
see,
one of the most famous Japanese calligraphists, he was asked to paint, I think it was a dragon, I can't remember what it was, but he was sitting there and all the people around him were watching, and he just couldn't do it. And he asked them to go into the kitchen and find something to eat, and they all went because it was fucking boring just sitting there. And when they came back, he just finished everything.
mm.
So even he had that kind of, uh, it must have felt kind of limiting situation where they expected something, that he should actually demonstrate something for them. He didn't want to demonstrate anything because he has these capabilities all the time. But then a violinist can pick up the violin and the bow and simply play. There's no fuss about it. But that was his story, that incident. So when the music industry gives young people 50,000 euros and say, hey, we want 3 records or 3 CDs in 2 years, they simply go partying, and then they wake up one day and realize that we have to do these 3 CDs. We have to come up with 50 songs or melodies or whatever. And that is terrible.
Yeah, that's what suffocates shit, doesn't it? Really, it's
It's
the having to.
suffocating.
It fucking kills things. Yeah, you
Yeah.
have to do that now.
We know very well how to kill things.
Mm.
And the whole idea of bringing up children is actually to bring them up. It's not letting them grow in their own way, but it's simply forming them or disciplining them or making them into something that is acceptable from our adults' point of view.
Mm. Yeah, it's almost to fit into a behavior that we know, and any behavior outside of what we know needs to be chopped down a little bit, or
Yeah,
adjusted
adjusted.
a little bit to get it back
Yes.
into a behavior that we can recognize and go, yeah,
Yeah.
that's okay, that's normal. Anything
Yeah,
outside of
we
that
have the
is.
matrix. I mean, it's there. We just want to socialize it kind of into the child so that it will respond automatically. when it is in this or that situation. Politeness, whatever, swearing, all these things
Yeah,
that a
had to
lot of
be.
people care about.
Yeah.
There are very few children who get to grow up, kind of, or live without interference, simply in an environment where the adults or people around it are simply nourishing whatever without
Yeah.
any requirements, without any conditions, without any projects, without any purpose, without any aims. Simply leave the child to itself and watch this unknown plant grow into what it already, in a sense, is. Like an acorn becomes an oak. I mean,
Yeah,
the
but you know,
tendency,
when you get that baby and you come back from the hospital, you really haven't a fucking clue. Like you really, really, you have this piece of life, and
yeah,
no book is going to tell you anything. And so, and then you're surrounded by how things are and how things should
yeah.
be, and then you, I suppose, do
But
your
there,
best with that,
yeah, but there are thousands of
or
books
not.
on how to manage with a little infant and how to manage with a child on 1 years old and 2 years old and 3 years old. I mean, you could read your whole life.
How to get out of the way. That's one page. How to get out of the way.
Yeah, how to get out of the way. It's
Mm,
and a lot of people want that kind of comfort that there is an authority somewhere that can tell them what to do. And this is one of the major issues about us growing up in a society, is to understand that in reality there are no authorities. It's okay to be inspired by other people, but it's not okay to regard them as authorities, because that will, in a sense, limit us in ways that we are aware of and in ways that we are not aware of.
mm. Ah, Sherlock.
Simply to say, fuck it, all authority. We don't
Mm,
need authority. We don't need authority at all to tell us what to do.
mm. We don't need anything.
No. I mean, Christopher Hitchens and a few others of those atheists, they say that, okay, without religion providing for us a lot of values that we should internalize and a lot of duties we should perform and everything and all the morale and all that, do you really think that we would kill our neighbor? I mean, without a preset system, without a preset authority telling us that it is wrong to kill our neighbor, would we actually kill our neighbor? I mean, don't you trust us as human beings? Where should this motivation arise from? That that I'm going to kill my neighbor? Of course, we could have our quarrels and discrepancies or whatever. I mean, it simply does not arise. It's not that violent anarchy that those people expect will happen once you cut all authorities' influence over you. They simply suspect that it's going to be a society where everybody rapes each other and kills and robs, and it's just tremendous stupidity. And they are utterly afraid of what will happen if they simply let go of that chain linking them to this authority. They dare not cut the rope and be free, as Soba the Greek says in the book of Nikos Kazantzakis.
And what do you
You
think
have to
about
cut
that?
the rope. In Nikos Kazantzakis lets this
But what do you think
Soba.
about that? What do you think
I
about that?
think it's a beautiful way of saying something that, in a poetic way, is true. You have to cut the rope.
You have to cut the rope. Why?
Yeah. Or understand that there is a rope and then simply let go of it. I mean, we are conditioned, once we grow up in this society, we are conditioned by our parents and schools and whatever to behave in certain ways. And we need to let go of that, in a sense, or to understand it, and then it will drop.
Yeah. Why? Why do you think that? That's
I think
so
it's
we need to let go
fundamental.
of authority for.
Well, we can be inspired by other people, but we don't need to follow authorities.
You don't
Is that
follow authority, though.
no? Well, I follow you, Frank.
Mm.
No, there is no need to follow anyone. You can be inspired, you can laugh with other people, you can do whatever with other people, but but not in the sense that I have to do what you say, Frank. We do that when we are working for someone because we have duties at work. That's not a problem. That's not interfering with my and your personal freedom. Or when we stop at the red traffic lights, that has nothing to do with our personal freedom. But
Mm.
once we psychologically uh, live our lives in a way that we follow others' advice or orders or commandments, then we are limiting ourselves and selling our freedom.
Is that a bit of a story too, though? I mean, just as a matter of interest, like living our lives and all that. Is it not? Maybe you just like how is any of that happening? It's just all happening, isn't it? In the
It's
story
all
of
happening.
in by itself.
Yes, the story, in a sense,
But
has
this
to
is
play.
happening by itself. This is happening by itself.
Yeah, this is happening by itself.
Yeah. So, no,
Because
I'm
you
just
need,
curious. That's that about the authority and getting rid of the and breaking, letting go of authority. That'll
well,
happen, or it
I
won't
cannot
happen,
say
or
that that will benefit anyone or that it will lead to something else like a cause and effect thing. But a
yeah,
lot of people are struggling. They are not happy because a lot of people around them tell them what to do all the time,
yeah.
and they do it, and that makes them very unhappy. The wife or the husband or the boss at work or whatever, relatives, the local priest, blah blah blah. A lot of people live their lives simply following the advice of others, and that makes them unhappy. So a simple thing for a lot of people would be to simply drop that.
But you kind of have to want that, though. I mean, that has to kind of arise within you. Like I always hated fucking authority and being told what to do, but that was in my in the makeup. Really, that was in my character. My total makeup was a rejection of authority. and any kind of being boxed or closed in or told what to do. But you know, you couldn't have that. And then the rejection and wanting to get rid of that came about too. You know, I can't say how or whatever, or but I'm saying the wanting to get rid of that either is there or not there, isn't it? Is it? I don't know. Like, I mean, I don't know what's
I
happening
don't know
for.
where that comes from with you, but it can be your character, it can be the people around you when you were growing up that allowed you to have this freedom, that didn't impose anything on you.
I think it's the opposite. I think I was just always a little bit wanting to. I think it was called the black sheep from a very young age. I
Yeah.
think that was just that. I think that was just there. Who knows? Maybe it was a rebellion. Maybe it was a reaction to whatever conservative sort of upbringing. But it's just so happened that that came about where I wanted to not. That really felt horrible. That felt prison-esque, and I couldn't bear that.
Yeah.
That's kind of just that's inside the
Yes,
makeup of.
I think I was in a similar position as you described with yourself. That a lot of people around where I grew up in the western coast of Norway, which was very Christian religious, old school thing. We had to learn by heart 30 different psalms with all the verses. We had to pray this daily prayer every morning. And my grandfather was ill. He had cancer. He was dying. And I refused until Jesus cured him. I was 7, 8 at the time, because he died when I was 9.5. And after 2 years and a lot of discussions with my parents, the priest said that Robin is exempt from these duties. I think that is the first response I ever got. So I was also, in a way, the black sheep. I was into all these obligations, duties, morale, rules, regulations, but I never let them come into me fully. And people growing up, it's very easy to see in religious settings. Islam, for example, is submission all the way, and Catholicism and the church before the Reform with Martin Luther and a lot of Protestant organizations and branches of Christianity, of course, raised their children in a very strict setting. And the psychoanalyst Alice Miller, who's written a lot of books about childhood and so-called child upbringing, she found out that so-called terrorists in the 1970s in the Brigate Rosso and the Baader-Meinhof, over 85% of them were daughters and sons of priests. Now, they've grown up in this strict play by the rules thing. And once they discovered the hypocrisy of their parents, that the parents really didn't live up to what they ordered them to do, then they let all that anger, all that resentment pass on to innocent third party people. I mean, they didn't have the courage of, I don't know what, to actually bring that issue up with their own parents. And it's very interesting that she found out that it was around 85% of them. That is no coincidence.
When you look at your, when you were saying, you were describing about your scenario and you said, well, I didn't let that in. That's just the way it happened though. It's not like you can't, and it's just the way the physiological makeup of Robin rejected that. The psychosomatic movement of Robin just rejected that
I
authority.
don't know how to answer that because I really don't know what happened at the time, but it never got in. That's what I can say.
Yeah, there you go. But
So
that's what I'm
now
trying
I
to
can
understand.
say I live in society, but society does not live in me. I'm not part of it at all. Although seemingly I'm a part of what you call society.
Yeah, seemingly.
Yeah. So I live in society. I stop at the red traffic lights. I do certain things, but it is not me. I am not bothered by any of that. I would not do what Richard Dawkins says that he does, that to read this prayer or the blessings or whatever. He says that he can do that because it doesn't mean anything for him. I would not do that in church because I know very well that other people that don't know this, from my perspective, they would think that, oh, yeah, he's one of us too. And I don't want that to happen. Not that it means anything, but I will simply not do that.
But what I'm getting at, that really is your makeup. From the few times that I've met you, your character is not suddenly going to go around, and that's why you can say, I don't think I would do that. I mean, anything is possible, but uh, your character seems to be a little bit anarchic, to be fair. So what I'm getting at this kind of choiceless happening. It's not like Robin is absolutely certain beyond. It just so happens that the character of Robin is not going to go and bow in the church and do the rosary in front of everybody and all
You will
that.
never see this body as long as it is breathing do that in church.
Yeah. And that just
I
seems to be
cannot
the
say
character,
and
though.
guarantee because life is life. But
Life is life, yeah.
what my sensing is that no one will ever experience that to happen. That is
Yeah.
simply me flying to Venus or Mars with wings. That is not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. You can say that pretty certainly, but that is kind of this free fall character that is, from
It's
what I
not.
can gather, is a bit anarchic and just.
Yes, but
But
it's
that
not that
anarch.
it.
Go on, yeah.
It's not that it is important for me to say this in any way, but and it's not important for other people, but it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I, that just seems to be, though, um, your makeup, as opposed to you trying to make a point or a purpose behind, you know, that. I don't think so anyway. I'm putting words into your mouth, but you know what I mean? It's not
Yeah.
like you're going up, waking up in the morning and going, this is, I don't want to give anybody the impression that I am like this and I'm not like that or whatever. It just seems to be the makeup of Robin.
You can say that, and that's still the Robin story thing with this body mind. But yes, it's not going to be like that. Um, I'm certain about this. In a diplomatic way, I'm using language now, but these things are not going to happen with me. And I don't respect Richard Dawkins for doing that. I simply have no respect for the man. It's not that I have respect for anyone. I don't respect anyone. Why should I respect anyone? For simply what they are or what they are doing? This is also a word invented as a part of this disciplining um, realm, or this world where everything is predictable and people have aims and are pursuing various goals. That word respect and also forgiveness and consciousness are in the West Christian designed words. Forgiveness is a total Christian thing that even in the secular society has become important for a lot of people. It's a kind of re-Christianizing people when they think that that is important. Why should I respect anyone? I don't have to. It's not a rule. It's not a commandment. I just don't give a fuck. Should I respect people like the Jews and people, Muslims, because they cut the foreskin of their 7 days old male child? Should I respect that because it's a long tradition in those religions? I mean, should I respect a lot of these things that religious people do? Should I respect politicians? Why should I respect people? It's simply trying to tie and yet another rope to me that will make me predictable. It's not that I don't want to be predictable or predictable. I just don't care about any of those. But it's a way of trying to attach me to what's going on as a society and to say that, oh, yeah, he's a bit crazy, but you know, he's one of us.
Mm.
No, I'm not one of us. I'm not even me.
Mm.
In this freedom, there is no us, there is no me, there is no I. I don't know what the fuck this is, but it's enjoyable.
Mm.
This is freedom. And in a sense, you have to be watchful. I'm not saying this as a cause and effect thing, but it's very easy to get tagged by a lot of things happening around or by a lot of people around. Like they kind of get their hooks into you, or a rope tightened around your waist or whatever. And there are so many ways these things play out. All these attempts to try to get me, I feel it almost daily, to get me back into the flock. And I cannot go into the flock because there is no flock. At the most, there's just a lot of individuals who do things together, and we call that society. They have certain agreements, and we call those values, knowledge, whatever. Yes, they're simply agreements between a lot of individuals. So what?
And when you mean be pulled back into the flock, is this like work or consulting or just being dragged in and, you know, to do normal things? Or what is it that you, when you say that you mean?
Oh, I have my relatives, family, a few so-called friends. I have so-called friends and real friends. You're a real friend, Frank. Who say to me, why don't you work as a lawyer? Because you could earn a lot of money and you could, you know, be in the newspapers if you defend those criminals doing the worst things around us. Yeah, that could happen. Yeah. I actually studied with one of the most known uh, lawyers in Norway for like 2 years, went to all his court cases, and I learned a lot of things. But that's not my way. That not that I have any way, but they kind of want me back into saying that, oh, you're normal.
Mm.
And especially my mother.
But that's life.
It's
And,
life.
and
It's,
mothers. And what I mean is, I mean, we can all relate to
I mean, she's
that.
over
Anybody
80
with a
now.
mother,
When
anyway.
will she give up that project of getting me into what she thinks is normality?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
She once
I don't think
complained.
so.
She had a boss at school. I actually knew him because I used to work in the municipality. So I actually met him a few times during the year, and we talked about fishing and stuff. And my mother complained to him and said, "Well, my son, you know, he's not married. He doesn't have a proper job." But I said, Just stop. Don't fuck with him. He's fucking with us all the time. Don't fuck with him. He's immensely enjoyable. He's a real madman in a loving sense. Don't do anything. Just leave him alone. Enjoy being with him or don't. That's what he said to her. And the next time I went to see her, she was kind of, yeah, he said, had a strange conversation with him. And I said, yeah, probably told you to shut up. And they said, yeah, that's what he told me.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
very
your mother
tempting.
obviously is a strong character if she keeps coming at you. So
Yeah.
what are you going to do?
She's been to Sai Baba's performances in India and seen that magic going on up close. And yeah, she's read a lot of books and interested in this spirituality. And yeah, but it's okay. The thing is that a lot of people feel so tempted once they recognize that this is the lost sheep, kind of. Now, in the Gospel of Thomas, the lost sheep is not any sheep in the flock. It is the most robust, the most energetic, the most courageous. He uses a special word for that, but it is not any sheep of the flock. It is this sheep that has the capacity to cross out of the flock and cross that border where the flock ends. And when it returns, everybody is happy because now it's back in the flock. Yeah, it's back in the flock, baby, but sure, it doesn't belong to the flock anymore.
Yeah.
It has discovered something that the flock yet has not. And the flock can never discover this. It has to be each and every individual that actually has, in a sense, I'm simply using words now, the courage to go elsewhere, to step out of the known into the real unknowable, or let's say unknown, and make that discovery. And then when you return, there is nothing here that can be attached to anything anymore.
See, for whatever reason, when you say that now, I would look at that totally different in the sense that if to me everything just seems to be happening by itself, so courage isn't required. But apparently, courage, it seems like that might be, but not really, because it's all happening by itself.
Of course,
So
when we communicate, we could use these words all the time. Apparently, Robin is talking to what appears to be Frank about apparently this and that. The whole language is dualism. We are seemingly in this trap of duality when we communicate. So instead of trying to make each sentence look like it's non-dual, we simply drop that shit and we say I and you and all those things. Of course, things happen by itself. Things
but
are
that's all
simply
I'm
happening.
saying. So forget the word apparently. I'm just talking about things happening by themselves. So courage may happen or may not happen.
Yes, it's
That's
not
all I
required.
mean. I'm
It's
just
not
saying that's
required. It's
what I
not a
mean.
necessity. Nothing is required. Nothing is a necessity. It's not that you have to do this or that. This or that can happen, but it's not needed. You don't have to. But I'm simply saying for a lot of people, if they detach themselves from this influence from authority, their lives might be happier.
Yeah, I don't know. I just know I can only talk from my own perspective. I don't know. Some people like the safety of authority, even though, I mean, that's why the devil, people will go back to the devil, I don't know what it's like. I don't know either. People are
It's funny, this thing, because people,
one way or another, really.
yeah, people have started asking Jimmy Newman, when are you going to write this book that you say that you haven't written yet? I sincerely think that he's not going to write a book. Why should he write a book? Why can't they be there with him? Why do they need a book? they need a book because they still seem to be attached to this authority complex, and a book is more kind of authoritative than to have Jim Newman there in person. A book would comfort them more than simply listening to him. They could present the book to people they know. They could say, here he says this, here he says that, all that blah blah. A book gives the impression that it's more authoritative than simply being there with this person.
Yeah, a book does seem to give that. Being an author means you're somebody almost, and it's you
You
speak
become
with
an
authority.
author, and you've written a book. Of course, if you write a book, practically speaking, it can sell, and you can get an income to pay the electricity bill and some of the food you eat, and a little more whiskey, but that's practical. But this sense of, I just simply call it the authority complex. There are certain things. If you say something, people are not listening to you unless you are an authority. If you are a professor, they're supposed to listen to you. Now, in the universities, you can see who are really listening to what the professors are talking about. They sit there with their computers, they're online, playing games, poker, whatever, writing emails. They're not listening. So the title professor or not doesn't make a difference, it seems. It makes a difference once you speak in the media about a certain thing happening in the world, but authority is a weird thing.
Yeah. I can see why Kenneth actually has never written a book in a way, because it seems probably has nothing to say. And so then when you go to write, it seems kind of an aberration to go and write words. Whereas in conversation, there's probably the free fall of it. It doesn't seem, not that one is either or, just that's my impression, that it seems to be maybe something can be said when there's a question asked, but something volunteered, it's kind of seems to
Well,
be
if it happens, it happens.
Yeah.
But if it happens because someone wants it to happen, to have a book to show to people, then that is a different thing.
Yeah.
Richard said to me that he's simply writing for the joy of it. He's not writing for any specific reason, simply writing when he feels like writing. When writing is happening, writing is happening. When it's not happening, it's not happening. And people ask him, what are you doing? Then he said it's very comforting in a way to say, oh, I'm writing a book. And people are very happy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you're writing a book. When is it going to be published? Well,
I'm working on that.
You see how the conversation goes.
Yeah, but you can. That's, you should never finish your PhD. Have you finished it, by the way?
I'm very close now, really
Good.
close.
Because that's what you just say. You've got your answer. Not that you'd ever need an answer anyway, but you have your answer with, well, I'm working on my PhD.
So I've been working on it for almost 30 years now. It's, I just, for practical reasons, I need to finish it. The pharaohs of Egypt, they never finished all their buildings. They simply let something unfinished over to the next generation.
Yeah.
I like that.
Same here.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple of filmmakers and authors that they don't go to try and get resolution all the time, which is kind of brave, because you feel like you need to. Well, I remember when I was writing, I remember thinking, "Oh, I have to get an ending."
Yeah, but to
it's
be
kind
in
of
this openness where there are no paths leading in any direction is something totally different than being on a path to something. You can say that it requires a kind of courage not to attach oneself to a certain path or going in a specific direction, but simply to remain in this openness. And this is my daily challenge from more than one individual around me, to remain this openness. not to remain in this openness, but to remain this openness.
Yeah, and how do you do that?
Oh, well, I would say by now I know all the tricks, but in a sense, I have to use language, of course, since we are communicating. To be this openness means that there is freedom available for everyone. I'm not imposing anything on anyone. And this is felt by people. That's why my mother's boss really enjoyed me, because there was nothing that I required or wanted or was going to drag him into or wanted his help in doing. I mean, it's an openness. It's the openness in a house that allows your friends to be there. It's not the furniture. It's the open space. And if I'm totally into my projects, as a lot of people are, there is no space for people to be around these people because everything is filled up with them and their own projects. You have this expression to be full of themselves. There is no space available for anyone. It's very stressing to be near these people because there is no openness. I'm not boasting that I'm totally open. I'm not saying that I'm totally open. I'm saying this is this openness. And it has nothing to do with me as Robin.
Mm-hmm.
It's like an open park. People can come there. If they want to play tennis, they play tennis. If they want to run, they run. If they want to bike, they can bike. There is this freedom to do everything they feel like doing. And with children, they sense it very quickly when I'm with them. They sense it almost immediately.
Mm.
And a lot of adults get very pissed at me, of course. That's almost like a daily routine.
Yeah, well, you poke though. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, once in a while, yeah.
Mm.
I mean, yeah, what to do?
Mm. Yeah, that's that playfulness thingy, I suppose.
People are very happy when they see me with a fishing rod because then they know that, oh, you're walking here because you are going there fishing. And that uh, almost unconsciously calms them down because then they know that I'm off to something. I'm not off to anything. Fishing is simply happening. It's not that I am off to fishing because I want fish and I want this and I want that. But the visual appearance calm people because they sense that I'm here with a purpose as they are here with various purposes. So if I just walk down to the local supermarket and carry my fishing rod, there's nobody questioning anything. Everything is okay.
Is the long and short of though what your everything I mean is that seems to be how it's unfolding, that world or that experiencing for you
Hmm.
seems to be you know, that openness you talk about seems to be just happening. But I mean, it's not a suggestion that you're not a pain in the hole some days and not, or are you always this openness? What about when,
No,
what is the openness like when the pizza isn't done correctly? Or is the pizza always
then
done?
it's not done correctly. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of mistakes happen. But when I'm walking along, people see me with this blue cloth with my fishing rod in, and a guy that I've talked to a few times, he asked me, what kind of fishing rod do you have? And I just opened it and drew the Japanese sword. And that is something wholly different than thinking that I'm carrying a fishing rod. I had been carrying a fishing rod, but then I swapped it into this Japanese sword, the katana. And when I drew that sword looking at him and did this with the sword, and after that moment, we had a totally different conversation.
Yeah.
And he says it was kind of a moment of death for me. Yeah, in a sense it was, yeah. This is, for me, what this playfulness is about.
It's a sort of provocation, in a maybe it's, without the wanting to provoke. It's playful, but it's confronting too. It's not like you're offering somebody a chocolate. you're scaring the bejesus out of somebody by doing that in a way, but then afterwards they will see they were never under threat. Although it is just so you're basically, what you're doing is utterly breaking the ordinary routine there of somebody's in this sort of a hypnotic loop of thoughts and
Yes,
daily lives
it's
and how they
this
see
hypnotic
you,
loop.
and what you're doing is, for whatever reason, is ripping people out of it. It is, we've talked about this, but it is this sort of Zen whacking on the head thing.
Yes, it's like that, yeah. They've seen me so many times fishing, because this is not a big place with 6,000 people around. They've seen me fishing, seen me carrying the fishing rod. So they come into this hypnotic kind of circular thing that they absolutely know that this is a fishing rod. So after a while, they get curious. So can we see the fishing rod? And when this thing happens, it's like crushing that hypnotic loop totally.
Is that when you were a younger man, has anybody ever done that to you, where you were in your head and you were in this?
I was in France with a bowmaster from Japan, Kyoto. He was an old man in his 70s, 80s, I don't know. And he was supposed to lead the whole thing with the Japanese delegation. And everybody was shooting arrows. They do it in a kind of perfected way with certain body movements. You have to pick up the arrows in a certain way, and you lift up the bow and you shoot. And if you drop an arrow, you're supposed to kneel down in a kind of ceremonial way and pick it up in a specific way, in a specific manner. And this guy, he was going to shoot, and suddenly an arrow dropped, and he just bent down. His bottom was up high, and the Japanese delegation was just shrinking of this horrible, non-mannered person. And a lot of the Europeans were there. They were simply, what's wrong with him? He picked up the arrows, and then he got up and he shot 2 arrows right into the middle of the target. He could have missed the target. That's not essential. But then he showed them that it's not about the forms and everything. It's not about the rituals. It's about what is happening. And 2 people were laughing. It was me and a Finnish guy. And I would say almost, of course, he invited us out alone with him. And a lot of people were so angry at me and that Finnish guy for laughing that they really had discussed whether or not we should be at the end or conclusion party or whatever, the goodbye party thing, because we were not behaving. We were simply roaring with laughter.
So you got it, though. You knew what he was doing.
When he bent down, I started laughing.
Yeah.
The laughing didn't happen when he shot them. but I started laughing when he bent down. I have no recollection of actually consciously thinking about it, but it was so out of the way that it made me laugh.
Yeah.
And there is also a story from Tibet where they were walking in this religious processions along the way, and suddenly one of the monks jumped up into a branch of a tree like a monkey and did a few gymnastics there, and he dropped down again. And that kind of completes the whole thing, because it's not something locked within certain way of behaving, certain way of being, certain way of doing things. That the whole circle has to be there. And I think Zen is excellent in showing that it's a whole circle of life. It's not the kind of perfect parts. It's also the imperfect parts. It's everything. And I had a few other moments like this in my life, and they were really kind of important for me that really happened. Did I tell you about my deaf friend from the Faroe Islands?
No, I don't think
I've
so.
known him for years. He was deaf, and when I was visiting him, we were writing on a kind of small blackboard thing, and yeah, all that. And he came to Bergen to visit me, and he wanted to go to the Society of the Deaf in Bergen. And he'd been sitting, not that athletic, so he was kind of big. He was in the second floor, and I just ran up the stairs, and there was a sign there, the Bergen Society of the Deaf. And I knocked on the door in a roaring laughter from behind me. And I turned around, and that is the first time I realized that he is deaf. All of me realized that he was deaf, and that was the first time. So to know things in the head, so to speak, is very limited. I completely forgot where I was when I was knocking. I was 25, 26 at the time. I completely
Auto
forgot.
recognition beyond,
Yeah, and that roaring laughter. And of course, when we entered, he explained to them that I was knocking on the door. And I was simply in tears. I was simply crying because this was totally wonderful. I was completely shaking, all of me, because that's the first time I fully realized he was deaf. And that moment has followed me into martial arts and other things I've done, meditation and therapies. There is an enormous difference between understanding something and really understanding it, or actually really seeing
it. What's interesting about this is you can't ever pinpoint a moment, not really, when of total understanding or totally getting it or totally all of that just is gone. Is that all of that idea of fully understanding or knowing or getting something, all of that kind of just falls away. It's like a clicking back into place of just everything, where there isn't anything happening really. So all of those things of all of those moments of finally getting it, you say in the search for, let's say this, there's this idea of, oh, when the moment arrives, I've finally got it. There
No,
doesn't
you will
seem to
never
be,
get it.
doesn't seem to be it's like it's the moment in a circle. Suddenly it's all, it's not like there's any, I'm not making any claims here. I'm just stating that my sense is that that end point and starting new point is not there. Doesn't seem to have ever been a middle or an end or a start. It's
No,
just
the
like,
circle
if you
is
look at a circle, you can't see the start of where a circle starts, nor where the circle ends.
the
You know what I
circle
mean?
is already complete in itself. It
Yeah.
cannot be improved upon,
Mm.
regardless of whether or not it's painted exactly in 360 degrees. That doesn't matter. It
Yeah.
cannot, the circle cannot be improved upon. You cannot be improved upon because you are everything.
Mm.
It's just this idea of there being a you as an entity that keeps you away from seeing that this is everything.
And
And
yet they're not.
the problem is that there is no available space from where, let's talk about me now. As a person, Robin, there is no available space anywhere from where I can see everything, because I am also this everything. So
Mm.
there is no distance everywhere from where I can look at this everything. It doesn't exist. But the problem for the mind or the individual I is that it wants to find that space somewhere that it finally can understand what this is. And it does not exist. It exists with a lot of things in life. You can learn a language, you can learn horse riding, you can do a lot of things, dancing, playing the violin, whatever. Then it functions because there is a distance. But with this thing, with this, there is no distance everywhere. And that's why it's hiding in being everything. I cannot see it because I am already this, wanting to see it. It's not
Yeah.
possible. I am already everything. You are already everything. There is no available place that exists from which you can see this everythingness. No, because you are also this everythingness. And
So
it
that
is
is
only because of this I that it thinks, still hopes or long for, to find that place from where it can discover everything.
yeah. So the end game is somehow or other, that pattern of movement. You see, that's the thing that you kind of can never hear until that you see that everything is being done, that the seeking, that the whole lot, the in and the out, and then this happening now, the whole fucking shebang, that there
Mm.
isn't a source from it all. It's just happening. It's so utterly mind-blowing for nobody, though. I mean, it's not like it's even a thing. That's what's the
The
mind-blowing.
mind cannot understand this
It's
because the
stunningly
mind is this
mind-blowing,
I.
though. It's
Yes.
yeah. But for nobody's actually excited about anything. And then you kind of, when you hear that at one point, you kind of go, oh, must be somebody there who's nobody, who's excited about that. But no, it's just
I
in the
cannot.
end game, when it's all been done, from my
Yeah.
perspective, when it's all been done, nobody can ever see this. It's spectacular. It's absolutely so. It's so the end of the universe, and not the end of the universe, even slightly.
It's the end of the universe because there is no universe in the first place. There is this everythingness. There is no universe. There is no earth. There is no world out there. That is part of the illusion created by the I, that I exist in relation to everything around me, including the whole universe. That is pure dualism. The thought that I exist and the universe is out there. That is exactly this ignorance, this blindness, or whatever you call it, this illusion. Doesn't matter what word you put on it. It is this arising from the thought, the sense that I really exist.
Is it not just still, though, happening by itself? Everything just
It's
happening by
happening by
itself.
itself.
It
I have no
seems like
clue what this
it's,
is.
yeah, it seems like there's volition and that you're seeking and that you're living time and space, but that's just another fucking thing it's just being done. So whatever, I mean, it's not even being done. You know, the way you had heard years ago, it's been done, you know, for itself. It's not even been done
Yeah.
for itself. It's not even being done.
No.
It's not even, you can't even actually say a word in truth. You can't even, actually, you would never even talk about it or do another podcast or say anything at all. Because even the moment you start speaking or telling anything comes out of your trapdoor at all, it seems like you're objectifying something when that is happening by itself as well. And that is utterly fucking mind-blowing for a human being in time and space. Definitely unbelievable for me anytime I heard it. It was just outrageous to think that this could be happening by itself. And even trying to understand that intellectually is not there. Nothing is there. And then who knows then? Because always when I used to listen to you talk, I'd say, well, he must know. It never occurred to me, the other. And it's not that it has occurred to me. There has been no realization, nothing. But then that sounds like it's a realization,
In
unfortunately.
language, in communicating, it sounds like there is one here who has got a realization and understanding and knowledge or whatever. That's purely what it seems to be like in language. For the sake of you communicating, we are using language. And it's unavoidable that it seems so. When I say I and blah, blah, blah. I mean, Socrates said that I don't even, I know that I don't know. I cannot even say that. There is nobody here to say that I know that I even not know. I cannot even say that I don't know.
Yeah, well, I don't know
Because
what I'm
there
going to
is no
say.
one here to say that.
I don't
It's
even know.
easily to improve on his statement in a sense by saying this. Not even nobody here. There is nobody here to come up with the statement that can say that I know that I even don't know. I don't even, yeah. Blah,
But the
blah.
beauty is, though, you see, the beauty, I hate using the word beauty, but the freedom, they're all positive words, but the is the unknown. That's the freedom is the unknowing. The
Well, I
freedom
would
is the
say,
unknowingness. That's the freedom. Because living in knowing, man, is just fucking utter pain.
I would say not the unknown as something that can be discovered and be known later. I would say the unknowable. This is unknowable for the I.
Thank fuck, though.
It's
Thank fuck.
unknowable.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
thank fuck.
thank fuck it's
Yes,
unknowable, because
because this is
suck
real.
on that, like for, I said that, suck on knowing for eternity. Suck
Yeah,
on knowing this for eternity. And
yes.
then try to get out of that fucking knowing. Oh man. Oh, you know,
Yeah.
suck on the sweet of being God for eternity, or whatever you want to be, whatever this thing that you might be looking for. Suck on that for eternity. Then you'll fucking taste torture. Because what do you do then? Eternity as that?
Well,
As
there
utter
is,
bliss and knowing and fucking
yeah.
everything? Oh my God.
And
To
these
be a
stories,
thing who knows things forever is torture beyond all compare.
yeah. And these stories, if you as a Christian, for example, would actually come to heaven, there is no escape. There is no way you can leave heaven ever. Or can you be a bad boy up there and be sent to hell for kind of uh, uh, correcting your
Yeah,
misbehavior?
for a
No,
dodgy weekend?
no,
No.
they cannot even send you to hell because hell is not a place where they train bad people to become good. There is no way. You have to stay there for all
Yeah.
eternity, and there is no escape.
And
Who would
all,
want that?
I mean, and no way out.
No
No
way out.
way out. I mean,
In whole Christianity, in Islam, in Judaism, they never ever once say that there is a possibility out.
Yeah.
They do say that in Hinduism, that there is this idea of liberation, moksha, where you actually step out of the cycle of birth and rebirth, where you actually leave the wheel of karma. They have it
Yeah.
actually in the midst of their own religion, this thing that you actually, they call liberation. And they do not say that liberation is to come with the gods as they do in monotheism. They simply talk about moksha, liberation.
Yeah. See, yeah, it makes, like, you see, to be a thing in eternity, like to be a thing in eternity is
So they have it in
mm,
Hinduism. Of course, they have this traditionally this notion of a self being there. And for me, the hilarious and funny thing is that when Buddha comes along, which was a kind of uproar, a rebellion against that old traditional belief in a self and the rituals and all the gods, he said that there are none of those things. There is no self, anatta or anatman in Sanskrit and Pali. There is no self. So when I'm visiting, and I used to visit a lot of some of the Zen temples, I ask people when we're eating lunch, because they are more talkative than, who is going to become enlightened?
mm,
And they simply said, well, I hope one day that I will become. Yeah, but Buddha says that there is no self. There is no you. That was before this thing happened to me. Who is going to become enlightened if there is no you? If there
mm,
is no self, then there is no entity that can become enlightened. And
yeah.
that is already in mainstream Buddhism, and they all seem to have forgotten that.
Yeah, or that's just what's happening
It's
too.
right up in their nose, and they don't see it. It's not the becoming enlightened thing, it's realizing that there is no self. That is the message of Buddha. Not the eightfold path or the three jewels or blah, blah, all the blah, blah. That's just toys that is given to children to play with. The real thing is to discover that there is no self, there is no you.
And yet
And there
nobody can
never
discover
was.
that.
Yeah,
And
I
nobody
said
discover
discover
that.
because
I
no,
know.
nobody discovers that. It's
That's
not a
the,
discovery.
and
It's
that's
not a
the
real.
beauty. But that is the beauty.
That
That's
is
the
the
beauty that you
beauty.
could never have in a bazillion years. It's the
Yeah,
worst riddle that never was. It's the worst fucking thing. It's the most, anyway, fun thing, I suppose. It's not fun though.
it's a nightmare in a sense that people talk about the light at the end of the tunnel. The thing is, in a way, to realize that there is no tunnel.
Mm, thank fuck.
This is the, you can say, this is the beauty of this limitless freedom, that there is nothing attached to a me that has to do or are doing and cause and affecting and all that. It's simply totally gone. Everything is totally gone. And that is why in communicating, we tend to say that everything and nothing at the same time. Now you can say everything means everything and nothing means no thing. So everythingness and no thingness, then it becomes almost borderline intellectual. Nothing means simply nothing.
Yeah.
There are no things. There are no entities anywhere. That is part of the illusion. So we say everything to indicate all the things you can think of are actually nothing. Actually, this nothingness appearing as different things in this everything.
Yeah. I didn't.
Saturn, you, your dog, your neighbor, it's simply an
Yeah.
appearance of nothingness in the form of a dog or a you and a me, Robin, sitting here.
it's hard to believe that the relief would be that there is no one. It's unfathomable
It is absolutely.
if you're in the cycle of looking for whatever the fuck, hearing that there is no one, and how could that possibly be a relief? Is I don't know. Wow.
It is unfathomable and it is unknowable.
Thank fuck though. I mean,
Totally.
that's why it's amazing though. If it was
It is,
knowable, it would be
yes,
absolutely
yes.
fucking disgusting.
That is why this is fucking amazing.
If it was the truth, or if it was something to be discovered, it would be horrendous. It would be.
There is no truth, because truth is taking some of the things in everything to say that these things are true in a kind of opposition to what is not true. That is taking some part or parts of everything and call those parts true. And that is limiting everythingness into somethingness. So there is no truth. There is not even truth.
Oh, I mean, it's so amazing because you see this idea of discovering or arrival or whatever is it's fine because that's the way the program seems to work, arriving in some way, shape or form to in some place, somewhere, something. But
that is all those who talk about the teaching that you will one day arrive where I am.
Yeah.
That's total bullshit.
Every word, though, I think if you're in the seeking game, every word, no matter what, it still appears like, that somebody knows something. No matter what way, if you're on the seeking game, no matter how way you hear it, you still will hear a carrot.
It's appealing.
Yeah.
As long as this I sense remains, there is seeking. It's unavoidable because the I seeks to dissolve itself or to get rid of itself, or however you say this in language. It seeks the non-I. It seeks the non-self. And as long as that is not kind of here, the seeking goes on.
Yeah.
It's unavoidable. Now, what I'm saying is that you are everything. You are this everythingness. Now, where would you arrive? If you already are this everythingness, where would you arrive? You cannot arrive because you are already everything and nothing at the same time.
And that's,
there
thank
is
God.
No place.
Thank fuck, like, oh man.
There is no from and there is no to. And this is, I guess, my guess is, from reading a lot of these books during the years about Buddha and the Zen masters and everything is Sufis and blah, blah, blah. This sense that there is something that you can discover is so deeply soaked into us because we feel a kind of longing, a kind of lack of real meaning in our lives. We feel this miserable life regardless of how many dollars or euros we have in the bank. That doesn't quench this thirst for the no self. This longing is there. So in all these religious, you can say sects or organizations, religions or whatever, when people talk about what these people have communicated, it tends to come onto the tracks that it leads from here to somewhere. The message gets distorted. Now, this is easily seen in the Gospels. If you compare it with the Gospel of Thomas, it's so easy when others get into almost this mess that they put on the tracks and say it's going in this direction. There is no direction because you are already everything. And that is explicitly stated in the Gospel of Thomas. You are this all. Now, what the hell are you seeking? Who is seeking? And this all is already you.
I wrote that down. I wrote down how can something that, it's kind of like how can the self discover no self, but how can that which has no volition ask a question when that question, ask a question to discover this when that is being done also. And then when that is being done also, and I thought, fucking hell, sure. I mean, it's...
And language is pure dualism. So when I say self as an I and no self, that's a dualism. But that is only how it appears to be when it is communicated in language.
Yeah.
There is no self, and there is no self.
And I can see why there's loads of words used, or why certain people, and I kind of totally get why there's no engagement with any kind of stories or anything like that, only just because they're not even doing anything, right? So they're not even talking about anything. And then why on earth could you go and start talking about something else? I mean, it's not like you've discovered anything or you know anything and you found out anything. So how can you then at all say anything? Now, obviously that may happen, but it would seem like when it's an empty end game, nothing can be said. It's not that the person is saying, I do not want to say anything about this. It's that it seems like that is just what happens and not much is said or ever said. I can see why people would never, ever, ever say another word or chat or say anything about this at all.
Well,
ever.
In China, they say that the wise are silent, the gifted speak, and the fools argue.
Mm-hmm.
This distortion that has come down to us from people writing down what these people had said is less evident in the Upanishads, because there they state all the time, this is what we have heard from the wise. And they do their utmost to bring exactly what they have heard communicated in language. Now, that is also, even if it's written, it's also taken out of context. And the context is kind of lost. So it's a fragrance of something. But in a lot
Even
of
wisdom, all
traditions,
that, yeah,
the
all those words.
distortion
Yeah.
is enormous. Like in the New Testament, it's totally distorted to see that Jesus never existed. He apparently existed as an historic person, but he never existed.
See, that's why it's stunning. Just this is it, is enough. I mean, this is it.
And you
That's
can turn
enough.
it around and you can say, okay, any knowledge you have, any experience you get, any discovery, all of that is part of the Frank story. It's not this at all. It's happening within this, but it's all part of the me story of Frank. If you see angels, if God himself or herself comes down to visit you, it's part of the story. It's part of the I trying to cope with the situation where it really doesn't want any of that shit. It's seeking for its own absence, and that is an impossibility.
Yeah.
So one
But you
day,
see, though, I mean, all of the words of seeking for its own absence and liberation and getting there and or understanding or wisdom or whatever, all of those suggest something. And they still, that's what maybe it's just a passion I have for fucking freedom. But this is it. End of story.
Yes.
Then, and if
In
you're
language,
looking for loads of stories, you find them all over
the place.
all over the place. But this is what you're looking for.
It's totally different.
It's so
Mm.
poor. But it's the only thing I'd say. Yeah, it's the only thing. It's the only thing that could come out. But then I would never say. I'm never going to say anything to anybody.
It's difficult because when we are communicating with others, we can communicate without using language. We can paint, we can silently go fishing, we can do things together. We are doing things, we are communicating without using words too. But once you start using words, it's very, very easy to get the idea that when I say this limitless freedom, that this is something
Yeah, exactly.
that you can get. This limitless freedom does not exist.
Yeah.
It's simply a word. But I
But
like that word much better than other words.
it's
Because
just it is
liberation is
juicy.
also a word.
It's kind of a juicy word, limitless freedom. It's like boundless, unfathomable everything or
I
no
would
thing.
rather listen
That's
to someone talking about limitless freedom than someone talking about becoming enlightened or reaching the ultimate knowledge or the ultimate experience and all those things. Those that I take the liberty to call real people in the sense that they don't exist, they talk about limitless freedom. All the others, teachers and everything, talks about things you can achieve, talks about things that you can accomplish, that you can become, that you can release from within, that you can realize who you really are, and all those things, all those lovely things that make people pay for the next stage or the next level or the next seminar and the blah 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 blah.
yeah.
It
It doesn't
goes
seem to bother
on
me
and
anymore. All
on.
that, yeah,
There is nothing to sell here.
doesn't
There
seem
is
to bother
no
me.
things for sale. And there
Andrew
is no
Cohen. I saw
things you
Andrew
can
Kim.
buy.
Yeah.
You
Andrew Cohen
are.
came up on my feed there the last day with something non-duality. Eight steps to. I reported him to Facebook as being selling something that wasn't true. You see, if you want to get rid of him off your feed, you have to kind of give a reason for it. And I said that it was false. I don't really give a fuck, but he was just annoying me coming up.
Well, those books about levels and how to get to the next level and the 8 signs for or the 8 characteristics for an enlightened or the 10 or the 20 or these lists are everywhere. And when they are published as books, they really sell because people feel that they understand something, that it can help them in a positive way towards becoming enlightened themselves or
That just
becoming
seems to be
the
what's happening, though, isn't
ultimate.
it? Like that's nobody's doing anything, though, really.
Yeah, really, yes. But then we can also in language talk about it in a way that it seems
We
that
could
it's
report them to Facebook.
yeah.
But that's just happening too. I'm delighted. Fucker.
Well, you see these things everywhere. So I have no idea, no thought about this being limitless freedom either. But in communication, I like that word, limitless freedom or boundless freedom. I like the word freedom because it it kind of indicates something that it has got nothing to do with anything.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It doesn't
So,
lead to a certain knowledge. It doesn't lead to a certain set of values, a certain morale. It doesn't lead up to anything. It's simply freedom, baby. That this is it.
yeah, you can see in some ways a lot of the words that I've heard over the years, as long as there's something, then there are something there. There are things out there. When there's nothing, there is the everything, but even that is a load of shit. Like, but
No.
it's all a load of shit. Like, too. Every last little bit that we've talked about here.
Well, as long as you
thank
can come up
God.
with
It's
something,
amazing.
then it sells, because then it is something that people want. I mean, years ago, it was kind of popular to say that I'm a mystic, and I think it's going to be popular to say that, well, I'm nobody. I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of fashion, it's kind of spiritual fashion. It will be picked up by a lot of the teachers, what Richard and Tony and Kenneth and Andreas and Jim is saying. They will pick it up and adjust their message and kind of connect to it in a way that it's compatible with their own teaching.
Mm.
I've seen that already.
Yeah, so your man's
Language.
doing it. Your man's doing it. What's his face? Andrew Cohen. So that's what he's doing.
The universally enlightened.
Some lark, yeah, some course that he's doing. I was going to see could I
I
find
mean,
it.
he's the first one in the whole history of mankind who has become universally enlightened.
Yeah.
Buddha was only enlightened.
Fucking good luck to him, man. He's great.
I mean, if somebody else wants to join him on that trip, go ahead. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
how much more stupid can it get? How much more ignorant can it get? It's absolutely, totally absurd what he's saying.
Oh yeah, it's called Intersubjective Non-Duality 8-part course. Sure. Look.
Well, non-duality is just a word. It's just a word. It doesn't exist.
Anyway.
It's a useful word at times, but I don't like it very much.
It's now laden down with loads of other meanings, whereas there was a bit of a flatliner, but it's probably starting to be laden down with lots. Like any word, though, any word. Once you open your mouth, I think it's over.
Well, in one sense, when we kind of live now, we have to communicate from the current situation, in the current situation. If you take quotes from 2,500 years back or even 100 years back and try to imply that as a kind of message, it will not be received by people. It has to be in tune with what is happening.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean,
So in a sense, there are new words created or coined to try to cope with the situation, to get this message through that there is nothing.
see, that's the thing, though. That suggests that there is a message and that somebody wants to get it through. If you're trying to even use new words,
I'm
I mean,
communicating in language, Frank, and to say that
which
there is
are,
a
but
message.
I'm communicating in language as well. Like,
Yes.
so all I'm saying is, you're damned, whatever way. It'll always be seen in some way. There'll always be some meaning put on something, and when there's somebody, it'll always seem like there's somebody over there who knows something, and so therefore, I'm sure there's some, therefore I need to get over the river to the other side of the river to be able to know what they know, and
Well,
no matter
I
what.
don't entirely agree. If you ask people going to meetings with Kenneth if that is so, they will not say that that is correct.
I think they're being
They are there.
starved, but I
Yeah,
think,
they are
it
there.
still seems they will still look at Kenneth and go, Kenneth's there. They would, no matter what, if you're seeking, it's impossible not to
Yeah,
think
but there
that
is a
somebody's got something. But I mean, in the communication, when it is uncompromising, it appears to me that starves that movement of the human being to try. It starves all of that as much as is possible, and they come away maybe with that feeling of nothing, pure disappointment, and maybe in that disappointment, maybe there's something. But they're utterly starved. But I'm saying that still, it's in meetings. It's still, as much as you can do and speak and whatever, it still seems that somebody has got something and I need to get there. Even if the motivation and the communication is designed and whatever it comes out uncompromising, it still will appear as that. And that's what's happening to those. That can't be avoided. And so therefore, the most minimal language, in a way, is always, it comes back to, like, you know, any of them will start the meeting, will go, it's still this. And now we can go on and chat about everything else. And maybe that'll happen, and maybe a sharing will happen, but there's no purpose to try and convince you of anything, because
Yes,
it's
as a
already
part of,
over.
yes, as a part of the still ongoing seeking, because the I sense is still there. That is correct. That is the impression that people, when they walk out of these meetings, carry with them. But at the same time, they have heard people stating that this is not so. So they have two different perspectives. And that other perspective, I think what I saw when I was in this meeting with Kenneth, and a little talk with some of these people, is that it's not entirely that version that they are disillusioned. What is it called? Disillusion.
Starved.
Yeah, starved. It's also joyful. They really enjoy it because they sense that there is something other than what is being communicated in words. These statements that there is nothing there.
I think
at the same time.
I think what it is that for the most part, we carry these stories on our shoulders all the time, and we're ready to launch into that. We're ready to offload that story with anybody and everybody. And I think that perhaps in these meetings, perhaps because the story is not entertained, they realize there might be the freedom in, fuck it, it's great. Don't have to fucking start telling you, giving you my elevator pitch, or talking to you about how I'm going to get there. All of that is it's just, that's my sense of it anyway, is that the story is not entertained.
From my perspective, it is an opportunity for people to hear this message that there really is no you. I'm not saying that that is important for people to hear, and I'm not saying that that will cause the no self to appear. I'm not saying that. I'm simply saying, if you look at it in another way, with all these teachers talking about enlightenment to their disciples for 10, 20, 30 years, how many of their disciples have become enlightened?
Yeah, I would
If you
definitely agree with
look
that.
at Tony Parsons, Richard Sylvester, Kenneth Madden, Jim Newman, you will suddenly see that there are quite a lot of people that in language now that are this no self. There are quite a lot of people, actually. If you look at these enlightenment projects going on in the spiritual industry, you can ask, for example, who with Moji as a master have become enlightened under his guidance. Why do they not list that as kind of credentials that these teachings really work? You can get from here to enlightenment. We have Robert, we have Bertha, we have Peter, we had Susan. Why do they never do that? Because these people do not exist. What exists is that when people go to these teaching schools, they get a kind of master's degree, that they are allowed now to have their own groups and do their own thing. Except they don't have to sit around Muji, around this and that kind of master. But with these people, with Tony, Richard, Kenneth, and Andreas and the gang, there is a total freedom that they refer to each other, they talk about each other. I have no difficulties, no problems talking about these people to whoever, but there are visible people that this nothingness has kind of happened to. You can single them out, you can easily find them. And that says to me, indicates to me that this message that there is no you really kind of has an effect. Not that it has an effect in the sense of a cause and effect, but it seems to be more likely to happen in that kind of environment than within a teaching. And regardless of where you are, you don't exist, of not being there. That happens to a lot of people. But in a sense, they don't realize that now you are not here. I mean, it's difficult to say in language. They get these glimpses where the I sense simply drops. And there is a kind of wonder, what was that? That happens. And from what I can see is that when people have heard this message that there is no I, maybe these glimpses can bring it permanently about, so that the I sense really drops.
It's a real contradiction. I kind of hear where you're going, but it is a real contradiction. It's a real it's a real paradox, and it is going down a bit of a story as well, which is totally fine. It is in magical land. It could appear like that.
In magical land, I fully agree with you. I'm trying to kind of come up with an explanation why this seems to be so successful with Tony, Richard, Andreas, and all those guys and girls, because they are presenting this message clearly, that there is no I, there is no me.
But that's because there's nobody seeing anybody. That's because, yes, if you want to say, because nobody's seeing anybody. So they're not being seen. It's not like they're recognized as being somebody. There's already nobody. Yeah. So if there's already no one, there's already no one. So no one then it's already over that. It's already over in that sense, though.
Yes, it is a paradox. Once you start talking, it's a paradox right there.
Yeah.
There is no way around that in language. It is a paradox, yes. But these things are out in the open. Anyone can log into the internet or go and meet Kenneth Madden or whoever. They are there. They are available in that sense.
It seems like this sort that the agendaless message is out there, but still again
agendalessness. Yes, total agendalessness. There is no agenda.
And maybe that's felt. And maybe you see using words like unconditional love, but maybe that is because there's no conditions put on anybody to be anything, and life is seen. So then how can somebody be entertained? Because there is no one already. It's already seen, like it's already over for.
It's simply funny.
It's already over for everyone, like, isn't it? Yeah. It's already this. And it's already what's happening. And nobody can discover that. But you can't.
Yes.
It's not like not one person has. It's just there's already nobody. So then it's over.
Richard opens one of his meetings by saying that this is nothing that you can understand. You cannot know this. It's simply totally unknowable. You will never be able to understand this. So we are all going to fail.
Yeah.
I really enjoy when he's saying it like that, presenting it like that. We are all going to fail because there is no way that you can find out or discover this. That would mean separating yourself from it in a total dualistic way.
Oh, yeah.
So I simply enjoy when he's talking like that. And yes, there is no you, no me. There is nobody everywhere. Nothing exists, blah, 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 blah. But then seemingly we can have fun. And
yeah, you can still dive in and chew the cud and whatever.
And this body mind still enjoys some even cold Irish whiskey or Irish coffee, and it's simply enjoyable watching the flowers, the butterflies. It's a lovely place, apparently.
The Garden of Eden. It's good crack, all right. I better
Yes.
go. I better go now. And I think we might have lost that entire recording of that pure gold we came up with because of the internet. There, we may not have, but
Oh, I thought it was pure silver.
no, it's pure gold, and
Or some
it wasn't deleted.
bleak lead, pink puzzle.
Lead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
Oh
led to
fuck!
this.
That lead that caused.
That there is a total frustration coming up because once there is a kind of sensing that there is nothing one can do, it's totally hopeless because it's unknowable and unfathomable, as you said. And then I say it's like you're facing a lead wall. There is no way you can get through it, but really it does not exist, and neither do you. I mean,
But that's
just
it, though. You
words to
see,
play with.
there's already no one.
Already no one.
It's already
There's
no one.
never
It's
never
already
been.
over.
Yeah, it's already over because there never was.
And then somebody might say, "Well, I want to know that there's already no one."
Well,
And then, but
this is kind of,
that's just what's happening, though. I mean, this
yeah.
it's not if you could control all this. Ooh, good luck with
This
that.
is kind of risky, but I would say that there is a kind of sensing, and I use the word with a set, sensing. There is a kind of sensing by no one that this is this. When this, oh, it's language. When this I sense no longer is here, there is a sensing of this totally being so. There is no need for an approval from anyone because it's absolutely 100% this and nothing else but this. But it is so totally obvious that I just call it a sensing, but there is no me sensing it to be so. But still, I'm simply saying this to indicate that there is a kind of awareness, but it is not an awareness that arises from anyone. And that's a really fucking stupid thing to say, really. But yeah, it's language.
Yeah, nobody ever sees this, so.
And only to communicate this
Thank
in the
fuck.
form of an apparent message is fucking boring. What is
I don't
that
know if it is. I think it's not born. I think it's amazing.
this is what is happening apparently, as it appears that this is playing with all its forms in every way. You are looking this way, that way, apparently. It is this through this form of this apparent Robin that is holding this pencil and grabbing this bottle of water. It is this playfulness apparently moving within itself. That's why we say that things are happening. But in reality, things are not happening because there are no things. So even
Yeah.
that is a paradox.
Sure, we wouldn't.
It
How the fuck do we
appears to
keep
be
talking
what is
about it?
happening. It appears to be what is happening. So what
Yeah.
what is apparently happening is that you live with your family, with your friends, with your colleagues, with your neighbors. You enjoy the butterflies. You enjoy the blue sky, or you enjoy the rain, or whatever. I mean, in a sense, it is to live life in this total freedom that you're
But
not
I know these are only
bound.
words, but you see, you're not living a life, though. You're not
But
living a life.
you're not even dead.
Who?
You don't exist.
Yeah, there isn't even life.
There isn't even life.
There isn't even life. So you're not
There
living
isn't
your life, and you mightn't
there,
enjoy the blue sky tomorrow. That'll be
yeah,
nice if enjoyment happens.
there is not even life, and there is no death. There is no one living an apparent life. But this apparent of things happening is enjoyable.
It's the only show in town.
Yes. And the tickets never sell out.
Right, big dog, I better go here.
Okay.
The pleasure was all mine.
Oh, it was okay to talk with you.
It was all mine.
It's a lot of babbling, but it's not easy in language. But you see and understand that the complications arise from using language most of the time.
I think the complications arise when there's somebody. Otherwise,
it's hard for people to accept when they listen to Kenneth Madden or to me or anyone else that there really is no one there. That's really hard.
it's not hard. It's impossible. When there's somebody, there's the world. When there's nobody, there's everything. It's not even everything. It's just what's happening.
It's just what's happening. I was trying to be kind to you when I said it's hard.
Yeah.
Get
It's impossible.
used to it. It's wholly impossible. It's totally impossible. Because once there is a sensing that there is nobody there, then there is nobody here either. That's what happened with my son. When he sensed that there is no Tony, then immediately there was a sensing that there is nobody here either.
Yeah, but nobody's sensing anything.
Nobody sensed anything.
Fuck you too. See you on the other side.
Say hello to the kids and your wife.
I will
nice
indeed.
if you say hello.
I will indeed. Take it easy, big dog.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye. Hi, if you like the conversation that I just had and you'd like more, please hit the subscribe button. Thank you.